2021 is the 25th anniversary of the Telecommunications Act of 1996, the last comprehensive update to Internet regulation. The Internet has experienced more than a few updates since 1996, but Internet regulations have not. That's why Facebook supports updated regulations on key issues like preventing election interference, protecting people's privacy, reforming Section 230, and more. See Facebook's progress on key issues and what's next at about.fb.com/regulations.
Streaming only on Peacock.
John Wayne Gacy killed 32.
Straight from the killer's mouth.
They want you to believe that I alone committed these murders.
The new gripping 6-part documentary series, John Wayne Gacy, Devil in Disguise. All episodes streaming now, only on Peacock.
Thanks for calling the Midnight Drive-In. No one is here to take your call. This week, we've got Kurt Russell Cop Week with Tango and Cash and Tombstone. For more info, check out the Midnight Drive-In on Twitter at MNDriveInPod or find us on Facebook. If you want to email us, send it to themidnightdrivein@gmail.com. Remember, no outside food or drink. Anyone caught performing sexual acts at the drive-in will immediately be taken to the office. Unspeakable things will be done to you. Thanks for calling.
Drive away your worries and cares at this drive-in theater.
That's why, to familiarize you with the movie rating symbols which will be used by this theater, we present the following guide for parents and young people. X, no one under 17 admitted.
I was going to try to watch the Justice League, the Snyder Cut today, but then Amanda expressed interest in maybe watching it as well, so I was like, fuck.
I managed to pull it off, but
you did?
It took 2 days worth of watching because that is the longest fucking movie.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Why the hell did they release it as one? Why isn't it? Can you at least, isn't it like chapters? Can you pick the chapters?
I don't know.
Well, it's not. I don't know. We'll talk about it at the end. I don't want to say anything that might be spoilery. I would say every problem that Zack Snyder has making movies, he does all that stuff.
Yeah.
No, he's not the best at telling a story, which is kind of what you need to do.
Yeah, I was gonna say I wasn't interested in the Snyder Cut. I wasn't interested in the Whedon cut of Justice League. I wasn't interested in the Snyder Cut. And then they're like, it's 4 hours long. And 4 hours? No, absolutely, I will never watch that. Because
it might. So I will say this: it's better. I mean, that's a true statement. It's better than it was.
But is it comparatively better, or would it be a good movie if it just would have came out as what it was intended to be instead of?
I don't know. And this is kind of a weird, silly thing to say, but in a lot of ways, Snyder got to cheat.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not every day you get to know everything that people didn't like about a movie before you make a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's that, plus there's the fact that he gets to make it for 4 hours long, which it wouldn't have been if it was a theatrical release.
Right. That's what I'm saying. He had a lot of advantages going in, and a lot of the CGI looks significantly better.
Mm-hmm.
But once again, that's what happens when you get to do it twice.
Yeah, you're improving it rather than
right
starting from scratch, of course. Yeah.
So does that say anything about Zack Snyder making a movie, or does that say something about this is what happens when you get to do it twice?
Well, there's also the fact that the first movie was somebody else trying to fix an existing property, which is hard to do, right?
Right.
So it's like,
I mean, like I said, I don't know.
It's at a disadvantage, and Snyder's not an advantage, and the result is two shitty movies.
It's like I said, it's significantly better than it was, and I don't know. It's hard. Like I said, it's hard to explain without getting spoilery.
Mm. Well, maybe hold off till next
Yeah,
week if we can have a spoilery discussion, because I plan on at least watching it sometime this week.
Yeah, it's a significantly better story than it was. Although once again, Zack Snyder's not very good at telling stories, which is why he needs 4 fucking hours to do something that any other movie could do in much less time better.
Yeah.
And I mean, he kind of did it so that he could put fucking origins in.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. You know what I mean? You get like a lot more Cyborg, a lot more Flash.
Oh, goody.
I hate him a little bit less.
Yeah.
At least they make an attempt to make him more comic booky Flash. I mean, he's still obnoxious Ezra Miller Flash, but they massively improved Cyborg.
Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah, but 4 hours. It took me 2 attempts to get all the way through it, because I tried to watch it in one sitting, and I was like, no, this is too much. This is fucking 4 hours long. I'll watch I'll watch the last hour later.
This is becoming a serious problem with fucking directors and getting a little bit too much leeway. As much as I like to see directors get leeway, and I don't want studios interfering, you know, like I still haven't gotten around to The Irishman because I don't have a day to dedicate to that. And now I'm never going to watch this. And it's just like, just make a movie a reasonable length, right? Like, shoot for about 2 hours for your movie. That's about right. You can come in a little lower, you can come in a little higher once in a while, but you start making 4-hour movies. It's like, okay, then make a mini series if that's what you want to do.
I will say this. There's one thing that's glaringly obvious when you watch this movie that's disappointing. So even with getting to do it twice, and even with the extra money and all that kind of stuff, the CGI in it still looks like shit compared to the Marvel superhero movies. I mean, it looks like shit compared to them. And it's not even bad. It just looks like shit compared to what we're getting out of other stuff.
But does it at least not have weird face Superman in it?
I didn't notice weird face Superman, so I don't know if they reshot it.
Then that's an improvement. Well, I think the only reason they had weird face Superman is because they reshot stuff when Whedon took over. So I think
right. Oh, although I find that interesting because all of that stuff that supposedly Whedon shot extra is all in the movie.
Yeah. Well, I don't think Snyder was done, so I'm sure he had to use some stuff that they had used in the previous one just to have it make somewhat of a linear sense. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I said, I haven't seen it, and honestly,
it's interesting because it very much is a different movie.
Yeah. Well, I haven't seen the other one since theaters, and I remember jack shit about it, really. So I'm not even sure if I'm going to know what was from the original and what wasn't.
Well, you'll know it's different because there's about 5 more fucking characters than there was.
Good times.
I don't know. It's cool, and there's some good comic book stuff. You know what I mean, like insidery nerd comic book stuff that they added.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I don't know because of what this movie is. It feels an awful lot like Zack Snyder going, "No, look, see, I know comic book stuff. I don't just butcher other people's scripts."
Yeah.
It still all has. I was gonna say it still all has toilet water filter on it.
Yeah. It's the only good comic book movie he's capable of making is the one where there was somebody standing there going, "Don't you dare change a fucking thing. Don't you dare. Nope, exactly like this. See this page? Make it look exactly like this." So.
Yeah, I was gonna say I still Watchmen's is the only comic book thing that I've really thought was.
Yeah.
Serviceable, and I mean, and even it has some significant deviations from maybe what should have been.
I mean, have you seen the Ultimate Cut?
I don't think so.
Oh, so maybe that's what you're missing.
Well, but what my big thing
is long again though.
It's like it's like 3.5, but I mean, if you want a complete version of what the Watchmen book was, this is the closest you're going to get to it.
I was going to say my complaints aren't necessarily the changes. Like, I get that they changed the ending, and I kind of understand why they did that.
Mm.
But my biggest complaint is in the comic book, there's this sort of visceral shittiness about the outfits that all the superheroes wear. You know, it's hard to explain. Like, they don't look polished. None of the characters look shiny. And in the movie, all of the superheroes are shiny, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It does.
I don't know. That's my biggest complaint about Watchmen, because it's I don't know. There's something tonal about that that's very important to the nature of the story. About, you know, because it's supposed to be like, this is what happens if superheroes were real. You know, mm-hmm. It's not good. Like, it's bad.
Anyways, none of those movies have any of the Stallone brothers or Kurt Russell. So they don't fit into our
I'm not entirely convinced that Kurt Russell wasn't snuck into one of these
movies. So that was Doug doing a segue.
Yeah.
Although he did just point something out, that there is a white actor that was around at that time that was not in Tombstone.
You found one?
That's the one. Sylvester Stallone wasn't in there.
You can't have both Stallones in the movie. That's gonna fuck everything up. Frank
it's like Time Cop, where if you have the same version of yourself, you can't touch, otherwise you'll destroy the universe. You can't be in the same film.
Two Stallones cannot occupy the same space.
Exactly. Well, I guess. Should we start with the more famous Stallone? Noah, do you want to tell us about Tombstone?
Sure. Tombstone is basically the retelling of the events around the shootout at the OK Corral, which had to do with Wyatt Earp and his brothers moving to Tombstone, where they eventually came into conflict with a gang that were called the something Cowboys. I can't remember what the beginning of it is.
It's too complicated, so for the movie they just call them the Cowboys.
Right, yeah.
Like, no, we can't have a gang with a 2-word name. That's too much.
Yeah, it's like a 3-name thing. It's like the something Cowboy something. They was a really dumb gang name.
Someone was like, "Can we just call them the Cowboys?" And everybody's like, "Okay."
I don't. Sorry, I'm getting the real story in the movie jacked up in my head. So in this version, they go to disarm these guys who have been shooting up the town the entire time. A gunfight ensues where a couple of these cowboys are killed, and then the cowboys retaliate by crippling one of Wild Earp's brothers and outright murdering the other one. And then Wyatt Earp forms a posse and hunts these guys down and murders all of them.
Otherwise, unleashes holy hell on everybody.
Yeah. In which this, I would call this loosely based on truth.
It's super interesting if you look into the truth about this story, because some of the shit in this movie that you think seems very Hollywood actually happened, because Wyatt Earp's life is just interesting as shit. And so it's like some of the stuff that seems made up, you're like, nah, that can't be true. And you look into it, you're like, holy shit, actually happened. And then other stuff is like, why'd they fake that? That doesn't make a lot of sense.
And then there's a lot of random stuff in the story. So Val Kilmer plays Doc Holliday, in which I've always found the mythos of the Doc Holliday character to be really fucking interesting.
Yeah.
Because supposedly he was this fantastic gunfighter and he killed 10 men, and there's all those man stuff. But a lot of people have done actual research into it, and nobody can verify any of this. So supposedly almost every story about Doc Holliday is a complete fabrication. They're all fabrications. They can only confirm like 2 or 3 guys he killed, and those 2 or 3 guys were at the OK Corral.
Yeah, there's no real proof that he was anything. People were definitely intimidated by him, but a lot of the theories that I was reading up this week are basically that he was making up bullshit about himself and doing such a good job of spreading it that people were scared of him because they thought he was this great gunfighter even while he was alive. And yeah, there was not real evidence of it.
Right. And the fact that the shootout of the OK Corral, they make Wyatt Earp is always the central character when the story's told, in which the reality of it is not even fucking close to that. Like, Wyatt Earp had very fucking little to do with the actual shootout. He was very ancillary. His brothers were involved and a bunch of other shit, but he was just kind of there. Mm-hmm. Now all the murders afterwards, yes, he directly participated in murdering.
But even that, the movie implies like dozens of murders, and the actual number is closer to 4 or 5 kind of thing.
Right.
Because everyone thinks the Old West was just like everybody shooting everybody constantly, but that's just not accurate. But you can't put in a movie where only 4 people get killed, because it's not a movie, especially not in the 90s.
Yeah, and they kind of mention it in the movie, but another weird thing is, Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday were both declared murderers for their part in I do believe it was the killing of the guys at the train station.
Yeah, because the part in the movie where you see him like literally just gun a guy down in like cold blood, full on happened in front of a bunch of witnesses. So the whole time that he was doing his vendetta raid, he was being chased by legitimate law enforcement who were just trying to arrest him for the murder he committed in open public.
Right. It gets really complicated because, he was showing that fucking marshal's badge or whatever, but if I remember right, he wasn't a marshal. So he formed a federal posse. So technically they had some legal authority, but but it was the marshals who were after him for murder.
Right. Oh, because just being, even in the Old West, again, this is what there were things like laws and procedures, and you're not allowed to just, if you're a marshal or not, you can't just murder a guy in cold blood. You know what I mean? And the movie implies very heavily that, he tries a couple of times to arrest guys and make them stand trial, and those guys are just let off. And there's truth to that in history as well, that, the scene where the old town marshal gets shot, like, I forget the character's name, but the old guy with the big white beard who's like the marshal when they get there. And
right.
That scene where Curly kills him, that's one of those things that seems like a Hollywood moment, but that basically happened the way it's in the movie from what, YouTube videos and shit have told me, because it's not like I was there. But, and they did let that guy off on some technicality. Just said, the gun probably fired by mistake, even though that doesn't make any sense really.
Right.
Then, so I mean, like, so there's that incident, and then there were people put on trial for killing his brother Morgan, and they were let off because I think it was one of the guys, his hat and stuff was found at the scene, but then a bunch of the other cowboy guys just said, no, he was over here with us. And it's like, in court, how do you argue that? So they just won. And that's when Wyatt kind of snapped and went on his killing spree. So you can understand it, and you can see how by 80s or 90s movie logic he's justified. But on the other hand, he was just still murdered. Yeah,
and there's other random weird things they changed too. So like the lady that he's falling in love with or whatever, cheating on his wife who's ill because he's a piece of shit.
Well, she's ill / an addict.
Yeah, they went through a lot of trouble to be like, oh, she's an actress, when in real life she was a hooker.
Well, in real life, all of the Earp brothers before moving to Tombstone were pimps as well. So it's not like they didn't have history with hookers.
Yeah, they all ran brothels.
In Peoria, Illinois at one point, Brian, you should be proud.
Yeah.
So
we got lots of fun stuff like that in Peoria.
Yeah, there's some interesting things. So he was married, if I remember right, technically he was married 4 times. His first wife died 9 months after they got married, and because of how shitty records were back then, nobody exactly knows how she died. They think that either she was pregnant and she died during childbirth, or that she had typhoid fever and she died from that.
Yeah, I heard that too, and I remember thinking, you got to know the difference between those two things.
Well, I was going to say those are two very
different. There was no computer.
Well, and they're two very different things. How did it get boiled down to two very different things?
It's because people are trying to write the history later after the fact, after Wyatt Earp becomes a household name, and looking back for records is almost impossible from that time.
Yeah, I was going to say one of the other interesting things. So the second wife, the one that was the prostitute, her stories muddled up too. Because the third wife, her name's Josephine, I don't know why she's the only one whose fucking name I know, but after she married Wyatt Earp, she wrote several books and basically made it her life's goal to erase his previous wife from history. It's crazy. She did everything she could to make sure nobody would ever actually know that woman's story.
Bitches be crazy, yo. What are you gonna do?
Bitches be crazy. But besides the actual history, let's talk about all the fun stuff. Yeah. People get shot.
They do.
Lots of great performances too.
Yeah, that's my one thing I would say this movie. As a historical drama, I don't know why there's so much changed unnecessarily when the actual story is so goddamn interesting. But then, as a movie, God, this holds up well, right? Are we in agreement on that?
Yeah.
Well, it holds up, but this was a first-time watch for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just never got around to watching it.
This is your first time seeing Val Kilmer's performance.
Oh my God.
How did you have conversations with teenage boys in the 90s when they were all just quoting this at you? What did you say in response?
I guess I had no idea that this is what they were talking about.
How did Val Kilmer not win every Oscar for this movie?
Right?
I know. It is such a fun performance. That moment when the first time when he and Ringo come face to face and Ringo's flipping the gun around and he starts flipping his cup. I will never not laugh out loud every time that happens. And so many little great one-liners. The I'm your Huckleberry and that is a hell of a thing for you to say to me. I fucking love every line delivery from him.
I do love the fact every single person in this movie is putting on some kind of affectation, right? Every single person, and they're all very, very well done. Billy Zane's doing his gay but not gay actor from the Old West. Yeah. And I mean, even Sam Elliott is not Sam. Is that right?
Yeah, Sam Elliott.
Yeah. Sam Elliott's hamming it up a little bit and going a little more stern lawman, but of everybody, fucking Bill Paxton's just Bill Paxton, baby.
Right? I was gonna say, when Bill Paxton's the most subdued of your entire cast, so that's saying something.
I was watching the whole movie. Every time Bill Paxton had a line, it would throw you right out, and you'd be like, "What in the fuck, Bill Paxton?"
The thing is, he's the only one of these people that has a natural Southern accent, so it actually makes a lot of sense. It totally fits, right?
Oh, it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's perfectly fine.
It's just because he's not hamming it up.
So good. Yeah, I was really happy with this movie after watching it, and I'm just fixated on this Val Kilmer performance, as I think everybody is. But it makes a lot more stuff in other stuff make way more sense to me now. There's a wrestler named Dalton Castle who wrestles for Ring of Honor that I never realized was basically just doing this character.
Oh, really?
He just has a very flamboyant personality and kind of an interesting cadence to the way he talks, and he has a mustache. And now all of a sudden it all clicks. I'm like, oh, fuck, he's totally doing Val Kilmer from this movie.
I wish I could do the accent.
Yeah.
It's his delivery just on everything. Are we not friends anymore? I don't think I could bear it.
I love that. My favorite, when he meets Ringo the first time, he goes, "What do you think? Should I hate him?" Yeah, I think I'm going to hate him. He's such a dick. I love it. That one time where he challenges the clearly illiterate guy to a spelling contest. Oh, every line delivery is perfect from this character. Every moment is great. And I'm a little hesitant to rewatch a movie like this because I'm like, is it gonna hold up? Like, I know I loved it years ago and I have a great memory of it. And then you watch it now and you're like, yeah, it's fucking perfect. It's so good.
Yeah, it's well constructed. It like meanders off the path a couple times, but I think that's because they were trying to follow the story. You know what I mean? Like, real life doesn't follow a 3-part story arc.
No. Well, and yeah, I mean, if you're trying to compare this, like, there's a lot that goes on in this movie where you're just like, I get it. You don't have that much time. Like, all these characters in, like, the Old West just running into each other. And it's like, I saw you in Dodge City, Kansas, and now you're coincidentally in Tombstone, Arizona. Just by coincidence, we just ran into each other on the street, and we all know each other by face. It's like, come on. But it's fine. It is a movie, right?
Yeah, gotta go with it.
So, I'm curious, Brian, as far as like the overall impact of the movie, if it's a first-time watch for you, were you pretty happy with it, just as an action movie?
I was. It completely was. I kind of like the storyline of Wyatt Earp coming to town, just to be like, I just want to make a ton of money and leave as soon as possible. And still end up getting wrapped up in all the, local shenanigans, even though he tries his hardest not to. Yeah. And then, of course, when shit goes wrong, he gives some of the best, like, Jesus Christ, Noah.
Sorry, it was creaking because the seat was locked. Yeah. So I was trying to unlock it, and instead all it did was make even more noise.
So, of course, then his brothers get, maimed and killed, and so he swears this vendetta through some awesome monologues, like at the fucking train station, when he basically
Hell's coming with me!
tells that guy and then lets him go so he can tell everybody else. I'm like, so good.
Yeah. I mean, it just as an action movie, all that storyline is pretty much perfect. And, again, putting aside the historical inaccuracies of, he didn't exactly get dragged into becoming a lawman. He just wasn't making enough money dealing cards, so he actually decided to, get another job. But whatever, that's not important.
And an interesting thing I was going to bring up. So we're going to be talking about it specifically in the next movie, but Kurt Russell's charisma, of course.
Oh yeah.
But in this movie, it's weird that he can sort of turn that charisma more inward, and he becomes more of like a quiet, like serious character, and still 100% works.
Well, what's
Whereas
particularly
in the next movie, he's like super crazy, like, I want to go have a beer with that guy, like charisma machine. Yeah. And you can just watch these two performances completely in contrast to each other and just know that, like, man, he can switch it on and switch it off like in such a good way. Like, he's so fantastic.
Well, yeah, what I liked about him in this movie is he has that natural charisma. So when he comes to town and his reputation has sort of preceded him and everybody's already kind of intimidated by him and stuff, he really plays that off very, very well. And then he kind of switches it into that, like, now he's going to be a card dealer and he's, playing the game with everybody and kind of keeping the peace. Throughout the middle part of the movie, he's, constantly trying to break up fights and stuff by doing come on, he's just drunk, send him home.
Yeah.
And he's using his charisma in that way to kind of just be just likable enough that everyone will listen to him and do what he says. And then he turns it up to 11 at the end when it becomes the vendetta part of the movie, and he's just like, now he's the full-on action hero. And you're like, holy shit, like it's like all these different versions of Kurt Russell. It's still Kurt Russell. He can't hide himself in a role, but it's all these different versions of him, and he's using his charisma in different ways to kind of develop the character throughout the movie. And I really appreciated what he did in the movie.
The funny thing is, the very beginning of the movie opens on a train pulling into a station, and then a close-up of like the steps, and you just see a pair of feet come out. Took 2 steps, and I'm like, oh, well, that's Kurt Russell. I recognize that slacker anywhere.
That's funny.
This movie's got so many moments. The scene where he slaps the ever living dog shit out of Billy Bob Thornton about 5 times in a row.
Which, let's be honest, everybody's wanted to do that at one point in their life.
Well, there's another thing is, like, as ridiculous as that seems, very much based in history again. Like, there's actually apparently a moment. It's not exactly, storyline wise, it doesn't work exactly like it does in the movie, but there was this moment where he wanted to take over this card game, so he literally pulled the guy out of the bar by the ear. How about that moment when the guy comes back to take his revenge, he's got the shotgun, and then Doc happens to show up, and he's like, after a few minutes, he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot you were there." Just a chubby Billy Bob Thornton standing there with a shotgun, confused the whole time.
Did you guys get really, really nervous the first time you saw Powers Booth? Because I haven't seen this movie since it came out. But, man, he comes out and he's got that really stereotypical... what the fuck's that called? A Van Dyke mustache. It's like the pointy mustache and the little sharp goatee. And I was like, oh, please do not talk with a fucking Spanish accent, because this is going to be so fucking racist. And then he doesn't. And you're like, woo! Bullet dodged.
He's fantastic, too. Like, his character is so good in this.
Yeah. Fucking everybody. Fucking Thomas Hayden Church shows up as a side character. God. I'm always happy to see that motherfucker in the movie.
So this was like a third theme for the movie, for both movies, which is everybody in the movie is somebody you've seen before.
Yeah.
Which is fucking ridiculous.
I was watching Tombstone this time. I'm like, how the fuck did I forget Michael Biehn is in this? Like,
right?
How do I miss that one? Like, of all the people, but.
Yeah. Oh, and we should mention one of the fourth theme for this week has a Stallone brother in it. We introduced to Wild Bill. He's playing cards with Frank Stallone.
Just cause.
Sure, why not?
Michael Rooker's in this fucking movie as a random ass side character.
Fucking Michael
random
Rooker.
Side character who's dressed like one of the Three Amigos for some reason.
Oh my god! And so Michael Rooker is a very intimidating guy in most situations, but man, whenever he had that tight curly hair, you're like, mean face, weird baby doll hair. I don't know how to feel about weird baby doll hair, Michael Rooker.
Yeah, but are you going to be the one to go up to him and make a comment about his baby doll hair?
I don't think so. I think he'd fuck me up.
No, right? He would stab you in the face and laugh the whole time doing it. So it's just like, nah, he can have his baby doll hair. That's fine.
You know that guy got corona, right? And you know what he did? He decided he was going to fight it off himself. So he took no medicine and he went and lived in like an Airstream trailer by himself so he wouldn't spread it and just fought it off.
Yeah.
that's what he did.
Yeah, I remember hearing that.
I just imagine fought it off. Literally.
Oh yeah, in my head it's like the Superman 3 moment where fucking his body separated into the Corona side and the other side, and they fist fought.
It's like fucking Merle Dixon versus Mr. Svenning from Mallrats, just going at it.
Yeah, and the mayor's randomly fucking Terry O'Quinn for some reason.
Not for some reason, because he's fucking Terry O'Quinn. That's why.
He's good in the role too, and it's funny because you have all these characters that like play very important parts, even though they're small characters in the movie, and you need these types of actors, and I think they got the right guys to do these smaller parts. Because a guy like Terry O'Quinn, like when he starts to be important for a couple of minutes at a time, you pay attention to him because he's a good actor, versus just some somebody that you get for scale.
I'll tell you what did make me a little it toned down to my enjoyment of this movie when you guys saw sickly, skinny, sweaty Doc Holliday who's having problems breathing. Were you like, oh no, real Val Kilmer is like that now?
Oh, I didn't even think about it. Thanks a lot.
Oh yeah, that's the very first thing I thought of. I was like, oh god, he's come full circle. He played this and now he is this.
He's not skinny.
Last time I saw a picture of him, he was getting real.
I don't think he was as skinny as he was in Tombstone, but he's still...
Especially after the trach and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because he was in Jay and Silent Bob, where he's still kind of chubby in that.
I think most of it was the suit he was wearing.
Well, his face was... Anyways, doesn't matter.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
We're now sitting here having a debate about Val Kilmer's weight, which is not exactly the type of analysis we usually do on the film, or on the show, so...
Val Kilmer didn't exactly have like a disappointing career by any means, but doesn't it feel like he should have been way fucking bigger than he was?
Yeah, he's one of those guys who let his ego get to him, I think. That's the reputation anyway. Obviously, I was never on a movie set, but, you know, that's why he only got to be Batman once, was because people just didn't want to work with him again and stuff like that.
And because that Batman movie wasn't good.
Well, yeah, like, because the next one was good. Once they got rid of him, he was the problem.
He wasn't the problem, but Lord knows studios are never going to admit that they're the problem.
Anyways. What else did you guys like about Tombstone? Because this is a fun conversation. For once, we're all agreeing on a movie being good and just having a good time talking about it.
All the things.
Well, I mean, Kurt Russell's mustache, Sam Elliott's mustache, Val Kilmer's mustache.
This must have been a really hard role for Sam Elliott to take on, because to be surrounded by that many other mustaches that were being competitive with your own. I feel like Sam Elliott's mustache was kind of fucked up in this movie, and I feel like he did it because he just needed his mustache to still stand out.
Yeah, it's kind of weird on the ends of it.
Fucking Charlton Heston's crazy ass shows up at one point.
That's right. I even forgot about him.
Even
Apparently,
it was like a very small role, but even his performance is solid, because normally he pisses me off in movies, and I keep forgetting it's him in this movie until I watch it. So
he pisses me off in general.
Yeah,
I like his movies, and then he's just such a fucking asshole.
I think from what I read, this is the only scene the original director filmed before he got fired off the movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then they brought in whoever, but then like people say they brought in the new director, whatever his name was, some long name. I'm not going to look up.
Rambo 2 is his official name.
Yeah. And apparently he was just on the set to make sure things kept going, and Kurt Russell ended up directing the rest of the movie.
Yeah. I just figured because he's Italian, I believe, and I think they just brought him in because they're like, it's a Western, just get an Italian guy to direct it. That's how it works, right? It is studio logic we're talking about. So. I will say that this film does not feel like it was directed by the guy from Rambo 2. Like, you know what I mean? It feels like a little bit of a higher concentration on storytelling and realistic everything, which could just be a director doing something different, or it could be that he wasn't as in control as he is in other situations.
Is it really weird for you guys that it feels like they bent over backwards to try to do the love story as sweet, even though the love story is actually a dude cheating on his dying wife?
Oh, yeah, and they left out the whole part where, like, Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp were fighting over that girl and weren't friends by the end of this story. Like, they ended, they end it with the friendship being a very sweet, touching story, and the love story being all sweet and touching, and they leave out the, like, everybody here kind of sucked, right? Like, they really gloss over the fact that nobody here is really a good guy. These are all a bunch of criminals fighting, and at one point it literally does. All the criminals become lawmen, and then it's just groups of criminal lawmen fighting each other. But it's a movie.
Yeah.
Oh, why? Don't post sad pictures of sick Val Kilmer.
Doug said he hadn't seen pictures of him, so I'm just letting him know. This is what Val Kilmer looks like.
But I don't look at my computer screen while we're recording, so you're upsetting Noah and benefiting me in no way. I will see those pictures like tomorrow when I try to do something else on my computer.
He just, between the way he dresses and the weird shape of his head as he's aged, now he looks like he's permanently playing some kind of weird Native American shaman living in a hut in the middle of nowhere.
You don't know.
I can find another picture that illustrates that, because I found one while I was looking.
Just stop. Just get off the Val Kilmer illness train and talk about.
I want to remember him as Mad Mardigan. You're ruining it.
Yeah.
Why does he dress like that all the fucking time?
Lots of turquoise, weird
just,
like bead necklaces.
Like I said, he looks like it's like a cross between a Native American shaman and a pimp. Just at all times.
So good. Yeah, big fan of this movie. If you haven't checked it out, everybody should check it out.
We should check it out. It's another one that I think is I watched through Disney Plus, even though it really shouldn't be on Disney Plus.
Yeah, and it's one of those movies that it's hard to talk about, that it just wants to devolve into you going, and then this cool thing happened, and then this cool thing happened, and then this cool thing happened.
That final, remember that final scene where Doc Holliday goes to confront Ringo there, and they have their little shootout. The charisma of those two characters going back and forth off each other is awesome.
Oh, God.
Completely an invented scene. Probably never happened in real life. Don't care, because it's just so fun to watch.
From what I read, it's believed Ringo committed suicide.
That's the official diagnosis.
Yeah.
But no, they found him leaning against that tree kind of thing. So.
Yeah.
But then you get the great line of, I wasn't as sick as I was letting on.
Yeah, I mean, for the performance, it's great. And for the movie, it's obviously a much better ending. It's just...
Yeah.
It's almost like if they just took the name Wyatt Earp out of this and all the memorable historical names out of this, it could be a better movie about just a group of cowboys. But
yeah.
There's a lot of stuff too. Like, I like the fact that because this movie was made in the 90s, the bad guy gang just has to wear a fucking red sash all the time, because apparently the director was like picking sides in the Crips versus Bloods debate.
Well, so. White hat, black hat is too passé.
Yeah. So.
Again,
yeah. As far as a movie goes, it's super fun to watch, and I think for people, even if you're not a fan of westerns, like, the shootouts are still fun, and the performances are hilarious. And if you have a favorite actor and he's white, he's in this. So you're gonna find something to enjoy, even if it's not the kind of movie that would normally appeal to people.
If you find the debate about concealed carry interesting, you can watch this movie, and there's a whole subplot about that at one point.
there is it's funny because there is the whole like guns rights conversation going on in this movie, and that's actually something that happened in real history. So when did the story take place? Like 1860 something.
I just love the fact that Sam Elliott has to say, no one's saying you can't buy a gun, no one's saying you can't own a gun, no one's saying you can't carry a gun, you just can't carry your gun in town. Like, everybody's like, no,
fuck you, what the fuck.
Because Sam Raimi's basically a communist, is what you're saying. We're saying not Sam Raimi, Sam
Elliott, yeah.
Yeah. What's funny is, like, if you go back and you read like the historical debate about this, it is very much like divided along political lines, and like who sided with the Cowboys and who sided with the Earps is very much divided on political lines, and those political lines are drawn very much on like the sort of the city folk versus the rural folk. Nothing has changed. Nothing changes. I'd never have faith for humanity, because nothing will ever get fixed. It's all the same shit over and over and over again.
Yeah. Good times. Well, anything else? Do we want to fast forward to the thrilling year of 1990, 91?
89, I think, is the next movie.
Well, is it? All right.
It's technically a rewind from the last movie, which was 93, so I don't know what you're...
Yeah, but, well, it takes place in the 1800s, so I'm saying.
Oh, I see, okay.
Jump forward in time to another Kurt Russell movie. Doug,
with a different Stallone in it.
With a different Stallone, the least famous Stallone.
Certainly the one with the fewer songs that play over the credits of movies that his brother made.
That's true. What do you tell us about Tango and Cash?
Tango and Cash, let's see. Tango is Sylvester Stallone. He's a straight-laced cop who wears fancy suits and drives fancy cars, and makes tons of money in his stock market. What's that?
That he's straight-laced with a hard edge.
Well, yeah, he's a cop from the 80s, so he still like takes down drug rings on his own rather than ever bringing backup with him or anything like that.
He's a loose cannon. He's just a much less loose cannon.
Yeah.
He's a loose cannon from Beverly Hills. It's a little bit different over there.
So then, so that's Tango. Cash is Kurt Russell's character. He does not dress as nice. He goes out of his way to complain when he gets shot one time because the shirt he was wearing cost $9. He lives in a small, apartment in a rough neighborhood. I assume, based on his appearance, that he plays in a Bon Jovi cover band.
It's quite a mullet in this episode. I thought the Jack Burton one was pretty epic, but this one is like 10 times.
If he's walking around with that hair in those tight jeans and not singing in a Bon Jovi cover band, he's wasting an opportunity. That's all I'm saying. So anyways, these two guys are known around LA because they keep busting all the drug deals, and they're very famous for it. Like, every day the newspaper has both of their pictures on the front of it, because that's what newspapers were about in the 90s, was putting the hero cops on there.
I was going to say, do you know your local cops who bust up drug rings?
Off the top of my head, no.
Are they front page news?
I do not.
Okay.
But anyways, so eventually the head of the local crime syndicate, played by Jack Palance, who somehow is...
Fuck yeah, Jack Palance.
Yeah, we'll talk about his performance because wow. Yeah. He's the leader of
Yeah, again, another movie where everybody is played by somebody you've seen before.
Yeah. Anyway, so he basically sets these two up to have them thrown in prison. Tango and Cash have to break out of prison because they're, in addition to being locked up, they're also thrown into general population in the worst prison ever, where as you walk to their cells, it's literally a matter of every prisoner was arrested by one of these two guys, and it's usually in order, so whichever one of them talked last, the prisoner will yell out their name.
And on an average day, they just throw burning fabric out of their cells.
Oh yeah, and nobody cares. It's because that's it was still the 80s when this got made. And so yeah, they have to break out and try to clear their name. There's some tension between the two because Cash is trying to sleep with Tango's sister. And eventually they just go visit their version of Q and get all sorts of fucking huge weapons and then just wage war on this drug syndicate. And then because they killed all the bad guys, they don't have to go back to jail. It's an 80s logic.
This ending is very problematic for the future of these two cops.
They commit so many more crimes than the ones they were convicted of, but it was the 80s, so that makes them heroes. Which reminds me, we have to add the movie Red Heat? No. The Schwarzenegger one, where that follows a very similar plot line. We're going to have to add that to the list because it's real fun.
Red Heat, I believe, yeah. So what did you think of Tango and Cash?
It's a movie. I don't know. I'm trying to decide if this inspired every movie from the 90s or if it was derivative of every movie from the 80s.
Yes.
I was going to say, I feel like if you think, crazy 80s/90s buddy cop movie, like this is a fully formed idea of what that is supposed to mean.
Exactly.
It's like they wanted to do everything. They were like, buddy cop movie, and you're like, yes, buddy cop movie. Rogue cop, and you're like, oh yeah, double rogue cop, that's great. Prison escape movie, yeah, that too. And a best friend that builds technology and can build them a super van. Wait, what? Like Beverly Hills Cop? Who the fuck is this guy? Put it in the movie.
Yeah. It's that fucking Gremlins sketch from Key and Peele. Just them naming off shit. And they're like, yeah, it's in the movie. Let's do it.
Isn't it fun to watch, though?
Oh, it's amazing.
The thing about this movie is it's full of one-liner comedy notes that don't work. But yet you're still laughing so hard and having so much fun watching the parts that the movie thinks are serious that it doesn't matter. The comedy doesn't work.
Doesn't it feel super weird? So the reason why the comedy doesn't work is they're throwing like one-liners on top of one-liners, which defeats the purpose of the one-liner. And I don't know. It feels like this movie was written by two people. And they were both told that the character that they were writing is the main character of the movie.
Right. So you mean they hired two actors who refused to play second fiddle to other actors and who have a tendency to rewrite their own lines? Is that what you're suggesting, Noah?
Yeah. I was going to say Stallone had a hand in Stallone had a hand in writing this movie, which is why he has all the one-liners that I'm sure he thought, oh, this is going to be amazing. And then he delivers them and you're like, that's dumb as shit.
He's like, that's a good one-liner. How can I respond to that?
The Kurt Russell will say something, and you're like, that dude's fucking awesome. I want to hang out with him.
And there's boobs.
There is in one scene.
Yeah, I mean, they're not exactly plot relevant.
Well,
I don't know.
So the people doing it in the car?
There's people doing it in the car, and then they're at the strip club, and then they're...
It's not a strip club. That's just a weird 80s club that has a dance show in it. Not exactly strippers. They didn't take off their clothes on stage. You had to wait until we were in the locker room.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that part. Which I'm sure Kurt Russell was like, this is the best movie I've ever been in when he's on set.
I did like the one line of dialogue where he's like, because he's being chased by the cops, and he meets up with Tango's sister, which is, what's her name?
Terry Hatcher.
Yeah. And so then he's like, he meets up with her and he's in the locker room and there's just all the boobs everywhere and they're all like, because one of the subplots is that Kurt Russell's character is irresistible to women. And so they're all just like fine with being naked around him and they're super like happy to see him even though he's in their locker room at their work, which is a bit of an issue. And he's like, look, there's nowhere I'd rather be, but we really have to leave. And you can just, the disappointment in his voice that he has to leave that locker room is hilarious. It's also where he gets his Elvis reference in for an keeping track for the month.
Of course. There's a Clint Howard sighting. Yep. He's Sylvester Stallone's prison cellmate.
He's amazing. Clint Howard was made for this role. Like, you could see Clint Howard in a lot of things and go, okay, he got it because his brother is famous and shit. And then you see him in this role and you're like, perfect. That is when a character and a role just meet each other in the middle, and it's just like he was born to play this part of this squirmy little guy who just fidgets with a fucking... He's fidgeting with a slinky the whole time, and he just, as soon as he sees Tango come into his cell, he's like, you know, I killed whoever, and he's like, 'cause I'm crazy. He's like, I'm not scared of you, because crazy people aren't scared of it. And he's trying to act intimidating, and he's like, it's Clint Howard standing next to Sylvester Stallone. Stallone just in no way intimidated, because how could one of those two guys ever, like, I think we know which one intimidates which one. But they cut away and they cut back to fucking Clint Howard tied up with his own slinky.
That's so good.
So good.
See, I reject that premise. If Clint Howard said something threatening to me, I would be horrified.
Yeah, but you're not Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, if you look like Sylvester Stallone, I don't think you'd be scared of him.
If I was Sylvester Stallone, my only worry would be my skin sloughing off my body.
You're melting. I like it later when they're in there talking and he pops in and he's like, "Hey, look, it's my roommate Slinky. Up, Slinky!" And he just tops up. Just
like, yes, Slinky learned his lesson.
What else does he say? My prison fiance at some point or something like that about him.
It's my fiance Slinky.
Robert Zadar shows up in the beginning and in the middle.
Yeah.
Which was awesome, which apparently he was only supposed to be in the beginning part, but Stallone loved him so much. He's like, we're going to put you as one of the ruffians in the prison too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's good, because he ends up playing kind of a major role. And actually, if we're being honest, his role doesn't always make sense. Mm-hmm. Because during the prison escape scene, he's like one of the guards. But,
Pretty much.
But he's one of the prisoners for the rest of the movie, so why is he one of the guards during that scene?
Well,
it doesn't make a lot of sense.
I think it's just the corruptness of the prison. They let this guy sort of lead a search party after him.
Yeah, they just went and got this one prisoner out of his cell and put him in charge of a search party of guards. And they're like, you be in charge of this search party of guards. And then every other search party will just be, guards.
Whenever Jack Palance says something, you just kind of go with it.
Can we talk about Jack Palance for a few minutes?
Yeah,
because
let's do it.
1989, Jack Palance, his entire career was made up of playing the head criminal that was in charge of getting together all of the other gangs of criminals to work under him. And somehow between this and Batman 89, he's more over the top and cartoonish in this, which is fascinating. So like, it's the same year. It's effectively the same role. And he's hamming it up so much more in this movie. I think because there's just more competition in this movie.
It's interesting because the next 10 years, his career was playing the same character.
Oh, yeah.
But he was the crime boss of some weird post-apocalyptic wasteland.
That's true. He's in Cyborg 2, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
The one with Angelina Jolie in it.
Can we talk about Brian James's fucking weird British accent in this fucking movie?
What was that about?
I don't know. I don't know who the fuck made that decision.
He did, from what I read. He just wanted to do something kind of goofy and off the wall, just because. I mean, it's Tango and Cash, so he's like, I just want to do something weird.
That's probably like a good move, because you're like, how do I find a way to stand out in this cast? Okay,
yeah,
I'll do that.
And apparently it was so bad, his accent's so bad that Stallone had trouble keeping a straight face during some of their scenes.
Yeah, it's really bad.
It has to be the scene on the roof where Stallone's threatening him to blow him up with a grenade. It has to be the scene where he couldn't keep a straight face, because I couldn't. So why should Stallone?
That's such a good scene. Like, just watching Stallone and Kurt Russell like go back and forth over this whole bad cop, worst cop routine they're doing is just fucking amazing.
I do have to say, like, that team up, whenever they're on screen together, and Stallone is he's calm, but he seems to be constantly angry throughout the entire movie. And then, like, Cash is just the opposite. He's just bouncing off the wall constantly, and the two of them playing off each other really works well. Like, yeah. I'm glad they put those two in a movie together.
Yeah.
We also have James Hong.
Oh yeah, we do.
Yeah, not enough. I would argue not enough James Hong.
Definitely a side character, yeah.
Definitely not as racist as last week.
Right. What if that was the ending? It turns out he's Lopan the whole time.
Well, that just pisses me right off. So good. Yeah, I don't know. This movie is just a lot of fun. It's super crazy and
yeah, it makes no sense. It makes like 80s action movie sense, which is not our normal human concept of sense.
This is also the movie that taught a whole bunch of children dangerous and possibly not accurate stuff about electricity.
Oh, I did like that when they're trying to escape the prison. And he's like, so as long as we're only touching one wire and we don't touch the ground, we won't get electrocuted, right? And he's like, I don't know. And he's like, well, is it right? And he's like, I don't know.
That sounds right.
Well, I'm gonna let you go first to find out.
I love the, if I die, are you even going to try this? Depends on how far you make it.
And that was maybe the best one-liner in the movie, actually. Despite the fact that the people making the movie clearly thought the "is that a proposal" line is the best one in the movie, because it's the only one that they gave to both of the lead actors. Which is like a huge crazy joke. Like, what if a man proposed to another man? Wouldn't that be funny?
So we do get scenes of apparently them looking at each other's dicks in the shower.
Yeah.
Which is weird, but all right.
I like the fact that, like, at one point when they're forced to shower together as they get dropped off at the prison together, which is probably realistic that you'd all be sent into like a group shower at that point. And then like Kurt Russell drops his soap and bends over, and Stallone just reacts like as if the minute they get into prison, Kurt Russell's immediately going to try to blow him. That's what he thinks is going to happen. It's like this, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like this is some gang that pinned you down in the shower. This is the guy you were just on the bus with.
Yeah. Oh, weird 1980s homophobia.
I will say, when they kept dropping the "Is that a proposal?" line, part of me was like, oh, it's nice that we've lived through a time when the idea of two men getting married was ludicrous back then, and now it's just kind of a normal thing that happens. I'm like, oh, that's good. I'd like to see a little progress in society.
Apparently, Patrick Swayze was supposed to be Cash at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
That would be a very different movie.
Dropped out to do Roadhouse instead.
Probably the right decision.
Probably.
That actually sounds like it worked out well for everybody.
Yeah.
It's like one of those like Hollywood stories where you're like, somebody made the right decision and made that all come into play. Because who else could do Roadhouse? Nobody else.
Well, and the Cash character needs a certain level of sleaze. And while Patrick Swayze is a fantastic actor and does good just about in everything, he always comes off as so nice. I don't know if I could believe him as the sleazy guy.
Yeah, I don't know if you could buy him, because he would dance at some point in the movie too, and that would throw everything off.
Maybe dancing with Terry Hatcher at her club.
Yeah.
Seems like I read Kurt Russell was also up for the Lethal Weapon role, but didn't get it.
Right. No, he turned it down.
Was that what it was? He turned it down?
Yeah, I think they offered it to him, and he turned it down.
Well, again, that's probably the right move, because that first Lethal Weapon movie, when you think about it, it's a little bit more of a serious role, right? And Russell's better at what he does in Tango and Cash. It's like he was feeling around for the perfect role and finally got it.
Well, but Riggs I don't know, the Riggs character's kind of got that goofy craziness. I don't know. It's hard to imagine it without the Mel Gibson repressed racist intensity that he has all the time.
I was going to say the Mel Gibson anti-Semitism.
Yeah, he's always got that constipated look in his eyes, like he wants to be screaming about the Jews, but he can't. But I could totally see Kurt Russell doing something different with that role, and that movie still being awesome.
Yeah, it's not crazy. It would just make the movie very different.
Yeah, I agree. Could be better. Could be worse. We'll just never know.
What else about Tango and Cash was awesome? Somebody else say their favorite part.
I was going to say something. I completely forgot what it was. No, I don't know. Stallone offered Kurt Russell a role in The Expendables, but Kurt Russell turned him down. He was going to play the Bruce Willis role.
That's weird. I feel like in a movie like The Expendables, you just can't. How do you say no to that?
I don't know.
First you be Kurt Russell, and then you can do whatever the fuck you want.
That's true. He's like, I'm holding out for these Netflix Santa Claus movies that are coming up. I got time for your Expendables franchise.
Netflix has got deep pockets, son.
Plus, they're going to let me sing in these Santa Claus movies. And
he sings in those movies?
Yeah.
Oh.
Have you not watched them?
No.
They're actually pretty delightful.
You should watch them. They're pretty good.
I never thought I would say Kurt Russell would be the best Santa Claus ever, but, well, I mean, Kurt Russell kind of is the best Santa Claus ever.
I don't know about best Santa Claus ever, but
you shut your mouth.
They're really, really enjoyable Christmas movies.
Yeah. He does like a blues, like weird Blues Brothers type of music moment in the first one. I don't remember what he does in the second one, but
it's like gospel.
Oh yeah.
All right. What about this movie though?
I don't know. I just really like this movie. I've always liked it ever since I first saw it. Some people, I think, would kind of make fun of it, and I'd be like, but it's so much fun.
That's the thing is, I think when people make fun of 80s action movies, they think that the movie doesn't know it's fun. Like, they think that a movie like this is taking itself seriously. And it's like, no, it's not. Like, the people making this movie know that it's stupid that at the end, when they kill all the bad guys, they somehow don't have to go back to jail. Like, they know that. They know it's dumb. They don't care, right? They wrote in the one line of dialogue where he found the tape that supposedly proves them innocent. And then since they were innocent of that first crime, they will now not be charged with any future crimes. And that's good enough for 80s movie logic.
Yes, the one cassette tape that proves the other tape was a falsified recording. And this one definitely is not a falsified recording that proves our innocence.
Not to mention, just to get their hands on that tape, he does just, after breaking out of prison, break into that one building where the sound recording studio or whatever it is, and just start shooting up the guy's equipment. Because it's an 80s movie, so torture and that all just works to get information. So
it's like, yeah, why not?
How much did you guys, speaking of torture, so he pins that one guy down at the beginning, the guy that tried to kill him, and he tortures him into speaking English, which problematic to torture a guy because he's answering you in his native tongue and you're like, no, fucking say it in English. But then in the courtroom, when that guy's using a translator, he just... First of all, like, it's problematic and so I love watching Kurt Russell blow up and yell at that guy, except you would immediately be thrown in jail for that. Number two is his lawyer should have objected because that guy is not related to the case that they're in court for. He should not be on the stand anyway.
Supposed to was he character witness for why he'd be a bad cop?
Do you when a police officer is charged with a murder, do you bring in character witnesses from like other crimes that he was involved in investigating and ask the criminals in the other crimes whether they like the cop or not as a way to just say whether he shot somebody? It doesn't make any sense.
Never been part of a trial where I was a cop, so maybe.
Yeah. I don't think that's how it works.
Yeah. I don't know. The fucking turbo van they have was pretty solid, but, you know, that lasts like 3 minutes and then blows up.
The whole thing at the end where they're just like, we need to really turn this into a giant action movie. This has just been entirely too subdued so far. All we've done is like shoot people and punch them. We need to blow up entire buildings. Let's do that. It's so crazy at the end because it just really cranks it up. And they just like, who is that guy? Like, maybe I missed the line of dialogue because I was laughing at something else. But like, who's the guy they go to that just gives them a bunch of weapons?
Some guy Kurt Russell knows.
Just a guy he knows? They don't even give it any kind of backstory?
I don't even remember.
His name is the creepy counselor from Sleepaway Camp 2.
Yeah. I completely forgot he was in Sleepaway Camp 2.
Or no, is it 3? Which one's that one?
He's in one of them. But he's always just a weird guy. He's always just a weird guy in any movie he's in, so... Doesn't matter. Who else is in this movie? I know there's people we haven't talked about. Oh, Jeffrey Lewis plays Stallone's police captain.
Like, you're like, police captain? Is that a job?
I don't know. Well, I almost said chief, but that doesn't seem right.
Yeah,
I think they're both police chiefs and police captains.
I believe they are, in fact, the captains, though. The character we're discussing was a captain.
Louis Arquette, David Arquette's dad. Was he the FBI guy that arrested him and they bust into his house later when he's going to eat spaghetti?
Oh, is that him?
Yeah.
Did you feel like that was just Stallone, like his inner Italian just shining through? Because he knocks that spaghetti on the ground and he looks at it with such disgust. Like, when you think that's what spaghetti is? Like, he's frustrated by the fact that somebody's eating that and claiming it's spaghetti.
He's more disgusted with the guy who doesn't have a shredded 6-pack abs and 1% body fat like he did at that moment.
No, he's just angered by carbs in general. That's what we're thinking. All right. Yeah. I was trying to understand that look on his face.
Destroy the world and the carbohydrates.
Let's see. Looking at the trivia, when Brian James was originally hired, it was a very small role with only 2 lines. In an effort to give the character something that would make him stand out, James decided to speak in a horrible Cockney accent. Stallone loved it and rewrote the script to give him a much bigger role.
Sure, why not?
That he did the same thing with Robert Zadar, who was not supposed to appear past the opening scene, but they liked him so much they thought his appearance was so striking he deserved a larger role in the movie.
I love that these like B-list guys get near Stallone and he's just like, that guy's funny, put him in more. His producers are just like, we have to do what that one says. We're not even sure who these guys are. Their casting agent sent them over.
It's them Zadar face bones. Can't get away from them.
Seems like I heard that Stallone also had the cinematographer fired.
Really?
It was Barry Sonnenfeld, who went on to be a very famous cinematographer and director. Yeah, he had him fired because Stallone didn't feel like he was being lit to his satisfaction. So fire him, get a different DP.
Look at how saturated this light is. You're blowing out my lines.
Say what you will about Stallone. He takes his career very seriously, and you can't argue with success. At the end of the day, everyone should shut up and do what he says. Like,
also the sound effect of the battle van at the end is the same sound effect of Luke Skywalker's land speeder in the first Star Wars movies.
I'm surprised I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah, that's all the interesting stuff it looks like, but
yeah. Well, I think most of the interesting stuff about the production of this movie is the stuff that ended up on screen. I think at the end of the day,
oh, apparently Michael Biehn was also considered for the role that Kurt Russell played.
I don't like that.
They have a whole list of people: Michael Biehn, Pierce Brosnan, Kevin Costner.
Costner, I can see at least.
Harrison Ford.
Makes no sense.
Yeah, Harrison Ford, Richard Gere, Mel Gibson, Don Johnson. Oh, Don Johnson.
There's no way that's true.
Michael Keaton, Ray Liotta, Liam Neeson, Gary Oldman.
I feel like they're just listing actors.
Robert Patrick, Bill Paxton.
I believe Bill Paxton was considered because he was considered for literally everything back then.
Ron Perlman, Dennis Quaid, Gary Sinise, Bruce Willis, and James Woods.
What?
That's what this IMDb says.
Yeah,
they just tried to create a list of all the actors that weren't in Tombstone, and they fucked it up and put Bill Paxton on it. That's all that happened.
Shortly after the movie was released, there was a very lethal, quote-unquote, brand of heroin being sold in the Bronx. It was named Tango and Cash. This was stamped on the bags the drugs were contained in. So many addicts overdosed and died. The NYPD was driving around neighborhoods using loudspeakers to tell people not to use this particular brand of heroin. This was reported on all the flagship network TV stations there as well.
That's great marketing for the movie, actually.
Right?
When you think about it.
Tell you what, I wouldn't get down with Ray Liotta as Cash, but if you replaced Sylvester Stallone with Ray Liotta, this might be a better movie.
Ooh, shots fired, Stallone. I'm sure he's at home crying himself to sleep.
The problem with that argument is it would be a totally different movie if you replaced Stallone with Ray Liotta, because Ray Liotta wouldn't take over production and try to run every element of it. You have no idea. Like, what would the script look like under those circumstances? No one knows. So I do think Ray Liotta would be fine in that character. I think he'd do a good job.
We were talking about Elvis Easter eggs before, and apparently when they're in the conference room and they're talking about their plea deal, they're arguing over who's going to make the speech in the courtroom. Tango reminds Cash his birthday, the day he was hatched, is August 16th. So August 16th is the day that Elvis Presley passed.
Oh, okay.
And Kurt Russell was in. It happened at the World's Fair with Elvis, and of course played Elvis in the Elvis TV movie, and apparently did the voice of Elvis in Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Which I was completely forgot about.
And he didn't. Some other thing that he did as Elvis too. That's one of those.
3,000 Miles to Graceland.
Yeah.
It was like an Elvis impersonator. I've still never seen it. But
two Elvis impersonators battling it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of fun with this movie, and it was fun to rewatch it. Anything else before we move on?
No, this movie it holds up surprisingly well, so it's a recommend, I think, if people are wondering whether or not they should rewatch it. I had a blast with it, and I wasn't necessarily expecting to. So,
yeah, if you're feeling like some dumb, funny Stallone shit, watch this and Stop or My Mom Will Shoot.
What? That's not. It's just, do you want to see Stallone teamed up with Kurt Russell or Estelle Getty? It's such a coin toss.
I saw that shit in the theater.
Yeah, me too.
Of course you did.
My grandparents wanted to go, and I just wanted to go to the movies. So I was like, all right. And to be fair, my grandparents took me to see Harry and the Hendersons and Ernest Goes to Camp. So
I'm pretty sure I saw that with my grandfather too. He took me to everything that was awesome in the 80s. So.
Ever wanted to break out of your cubicle and into a business where you can call the shots? You Break iFix is looking for passionate self-starters interested in a franchise opportunity in the booming electronics repair industry. At You Break iFix, we help reconnect people to the devices that they rely on so that they can get back to what matters most. This is a big responsibility, and from the moment you join our family, our franchisees are provided with the resources and support to bring affordable and convenient electronics repair to your community. Did we mention that with amazing partners like Samsung and Google, You Break iFix franchisees also have access to the highest quality parts and personalized training out there, as well as specialized tools? It's true. And it's also easy to visit youbreakifix.com/franchising and learn more about your big break at your very own You Break iFix.
2021 is the 25th anniversary of the Telecommunications Act of 1996, the last comprehensive update to Internet regulation. The Internet has experienced more than a few updates since 1996, but Internet regulations have not. That's why Facebook supports updated regulations on key issues like preventing election interference, protecting people's privacy, reforming Section 230, and more. See Facebook's progress on key issues and what's next at about.fb.com/regulations.
Thanks for calling the Midnight Drive-In. No one is here to take your call. For more info, check out the Midnight Drive-In on Twitter at MNDriveInPod or find us on Facebook. If you want to email us, send it to themidnightdrivein@gmail.com. Remember, no outside food and drink. Anyone caught performing sexual acts at the drive-in will immediately be taken to the office. Unspeakable things will be done to you. Thanks for calling.
I got one piece of feedback.
Me too.
Our friend Brian wrote in, and Doug's going to love this. He starts out the email with, "I'm about to blow Noah's mind."
Which comedy from the 80s hasn't Brian seen?
Already blown.
I, too, have never seen Spinal Tap.
Whoa.
Woo, been holding on to that baggage for 37 years.
You dial 911. I'll tell Noah you haven't seen Spinal Tap, and you dial 1 again.
I really loved your coverage of Big Trouble in Little China, but now you guys got me feeling bad for all the inherent racism. Thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. That is one of the things we strive to do around here, is make our listeners feel guilty for enjoying movies.
Still in my top 5, though, which I would agree with. Been a while since I've seen Used Cars, but I totally remember everything about it as you discussed it. But I had a thought. If you guys didn't do this for CRAM, which stands for Kurt Russell Appreciation Month,
okay,
this would have been paired really well with Bachelor Party. I know Noah said The Goods would have been paired well, but isn't that movie post-2000 breaking your own rules, Noah? Yeah, Noah.
I didn't set the rules. I'm just contained by them.
Who did? Because nobody seems to know. Did I set the rules?
I do believe you said initially, let's not do anything after like 2000. It was very loose, and ever since then, the rules seem to arbitrarily change to prevent me from adding movies that Doug doesn't want to watch.
There's an element of truth to what you're saying. As the founders of the podcast, I believe Brian and I have a bit of an override.
No. If Noah fights hard enough, I usually give in and just let him do whatever he wants.
Well, I know that's the problem because it takes two of us to override. And me, I'm trying to override every fucking thing he puts on the list. So.
I guess I did make the rule. I honestly don't remember doing it. I'm not saying I didn't. I'm just saying I don't remember because I don't even remember what I said last week on the show. So. He continues, if you guys haven't seen Bachelor Party, you need to add it to the list. Great raunchy 80s movie starring a young Tom Hanks. Guess you could do it during Hanksgiving. Just came up with another theme month for us.
Like I said, I think we should do a theme year of theme months.
No, we're not. This is too complicated. We'll never get through that.
It's a meta theme. It's a theme.
We'll fail. That having been said, we could just do a used cars appreciation show where we team up other movies that would go well with used cars and do Bachelor Party in the Goods. So
call it like Toyotathon or something. He says also, I'm super late to this one, but I finally got around to seeing Dread, and holy shit, is that movie fan-fucking-tastic. I agree.
Yes.
Hey, guess what, you son of a bitch? You waited around too long. You should have seen that movie whenever it was out so that it would have fucking done better.
Right?
That will never-endingly piss me off that movie didn't get a sequel and stuff. It's so fucking just awesome.
Yeah.
It's weird, too, because it's like Carl Urban has become so big since that movie came out, and he still openly says he'd like to do a sequel. You'd think that would be enough at this
apparently
point.
It's not.
Because you could just do another standalone story that people wouldn't need to have seen the first one to appreciate it, right?
Yeah.
I'd really like to see a Judge Dredd movie where he goes up against Judge Death.
Yeah. Be down for that.
Some of the weirder stuff, you know what I mean?
More supernatural, crazy stuff. Or sci-fi or whatever. What the fuck you want to call it? He says it's criminal the studios marketed that movie poorly. We should have had 3 sequels by now. Everything about it just worked. At least for me it did. I know it's compared to The Raid, but I haven't seen it. I do have a bunch of 2080 books I bought digitally. I got it, started getting to. Have you guys read any? Thoughts? And Carl Urban, why isn't he in more stuff? I would venture to say, and hear me out, he's a modern day Kurt Russell. He's charismatic, tough as hell, and a great actor. That's all for now. As always, keep up the great work.
I would argue Carl Urban be in. Like, come on, man.
I would argue he plays badass better than Kurt Russell.
Plays badass, yes.
Badass, yes.
He's less charismatic, so.
He is also agreed.
Yeah. I think it's just because Kurt Russell used up all the charisma, and nobody else has any left.
He pulled the charisma from the universe, and that's why we have shitty presidents now.
That's right. Carl Urban's on The Boys right now, and he's pretty fucking awesome on it. So
the guy, he was apparently a stormtrooper in Rise of Skywalker, but he probably doesn't want to admit to that. But isn't he somebody in the MCU too? Some minor character.
He was in the last Thor movie.
Yeah.
So what was his name? Korv.
He was the executioner.
Scar, yeah, that's what it was.
So at this point, though, he's a main character in the existing Star Trek universe. He's in the MCU. He's in the Star Wars universe. He was in the Lord of the Rings movies. Mm-hmm. He's on The Boys. And Brian doesn't think he's popular enough. He's not in enough things. It's like, fuck, there's no cinematic universes left for the guy.
He could be the new Wolfman.
Oh, you know what? That's actually a good idea.
I'd be down for that.
I could see him as...
I would also, you could sell him as Dracula, I think, too.
Well, he's a hell of an actor, and he could pull off both. I think he'd be better suited to Wolfman, but he could work as Dracula.
Do a less sexy and a slightly more sleazy Dracula.
He still uses like his accent from The Boys. I mean, like his natural accent, but he still just turns up like his sleaziness from The Boys and just does that as Dracula. Calls everybody a cunt all the time.
It calls every female character in it sugar tits, even though it's a period film.
Oh my word!
Oh my!
Jesus Christ!
Yeah. See, I mean, tell me you wouldn't watch it. I'd watch the shit out of that movie.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
Somebody contact Carl Urban. We got a movie to pitch to him.
First, you'd have to convince Universal that they could actually do something good with their monsters that they own.
Oh, we don't need Universal. Dracula's a public domain character. We can just do whatever we want with him.
I suppose that's true.
All right. Did anybody watch anything since last week?
The only thing I watched was the Snyder Cut. I mean, it's 8.5 hours long. So, how the fuck was I supposed to watch anything else?
Yeah. I mean, we talked about it at the top of the show. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I'll wait for you guys to watch it, and then we'll do some spoilery stuff. It's too hard to talk about without spoiling.
Well, Doug said he's not going to watch it, so it's going to be.
Well, then I'll wait for you to see it, and Doug can sit and listen to us talk about it.
Well, maybe we'll do it at the end of the show, and I'll just quietly hang out.
Yeah, we need you to provide commentary about.
Commentary.
All right. You'd be like, that sounds stupid, and I'm like, yeah, you're probably right.
Jared Leto looks fucking terrible in the still photos that they're using to market the movie, and I'm like, that's.
So, I would agree with that, but at the same time, looks so much better than Thugalo Joker.
I'd agree with that.
Again,
that I forgive it.
One of the reasons why I don't have an interest in Justice League is because it's the culmination of a universe that was ruined previous to it being made. So, like, there's no fixing anything post Batman v Superman. So it doesn't matter what else they do at this point.
Yeah, well, except for just do a bunch of random standalone movies that have nothing to do with the DCU.
Exactly.
I'll tell you what, I don't think this is very spoilery, but he made the Snyder Cut in a way that seems fully intentioned on making sequels.
I think so.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, it's not subtle that they do that.
But he's on the record saying he has sequels planned and that he's been told he's not going to get to make them. But he just left his movie ending the way he wanted it to anyway.
Well, one of the things he's on record as saying is that he wanted Lois Lane to have Batman's baby and have Superman raise it, which I was like, okay, you need to fucking stop.
Right.
Somebody take it away. Take the movies away from him.
Exact. No. Smack him on the nose with a newspaper. All right. Well, did you watch anything, Doug?
Well, while we're on topic, I finally watched a DC movie.
Oh yeah.
I finally got around to Shazam.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
the good side of DC.
Yeah, I was hesitant to watch it because of all that other stuff. It was delightful. It was a very, very enjoyable movie to watch. Mm-hmm. It was a little grimdark considering the subject matter at hand. But
you think so? I didn't think it was very grimdark.
Just a little bit. There was a little bit of like it sounds silly, but like the language was a little bit too harsh, and you're like, this is a movie that could be for kids, but they didn't quite want to go that way with it, and just everything was just a little darker than what I anticipated, given the subject matter. But it wasn't enough to throw me off the movie. I enjoyed it quite a bit. You know what it reminded me of was Raimi's first Spider-Man movie, with the whole thing of him having to learn to accept the responsibilities that come along with the powers, and then learn to harness the powers and use them and all that kind of stuff. And that's, it's a huge compliment for me, saying it reminds me of Raimi's Spider-Man. So I was very happy with it. Performances were good, pretty typical superhero origin story stuff from much of it, but executed well.
This was the first DC movie that I actually loved compared to everything else they had put out up to this point. And I think they just was kind of like, yeah, it's Shazam, do whatever. I don't know. The DCU's kind of falling apart. Just do your own movie.
Yeah, but it was fun. I like the relationships between the characters. The lead performance from what's his name, the guy that plays Shazam. He does a good job of encompassing like what if a 12-year-old boy was trying to deal with these superpowers.
So when they cast him, I was like, that doesn't make any sense at all. Like he doesn't look like a superhero. Like I don't understand what their logic is. And then when I saw the first like set photos of him in the suit, I was like, oh, okay. He's like basically an imagined version of what this kid thinks a superhero looks like. Yeah. That makes way more sense. And I was totally on board after that.
It did take me a little while to get used to the suit, it's like one of those Halloween costumes. My kid has several of them where there's just the muscles built in, so you don't actually have to work out. Like, well, that's a little bit weird to see in an actual movie. But...
yeah. I mean, it's a little bit more exaggerated. I think this is one movie they can get away with it, kind of with the way they're doing it. But man, after I kind of went on board with that, I just I was like, okay, I'm excited. And then I watched the movie and I'm like, holy shit, this was so much fun and I had such a great time watching it. Why can't the other DC movies be this good?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, why can't, if they can make one like this, why can't they make others?
Yeah.
And I think you kind of hit on something there, which is it's the same thing that happened with Guardians of the Galaxy on the Marvel side. Is they have these characters that are lesser known, and they're like, yeah, just go do your movie, go see what you come up with, kind of thing, and they leave it in the hands of the filmmaker rather than having studio execs involved, and it turns out good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm really happy. I was actually surprised at the ending. I don't know why, but I really enjoyed when he turned all his siblings into Shazams as well.
Yeah, which I was kind of surprised with. I figured that's something they would do in the sequel.
Yeah,
but they just went right into it.
Right, because it kind of misses something, because the whole point of him sharing his power is supposed to be in direct contrast to Black Adam, which makes it make less. I don't know. It makes less sense without that context.
Well, in this movie, though, it again, given that I don't know anything about Shazam comics, it is in contrast to the other character. I don't even remember the villain's name, but he's
Savannah.
actually he's good in the role. And his whole thing is he's trying to get Shazam's power. So
he's trying to hoard power while Shazam just gives it away. Yeah.
Yeah. So it does work on that level. It's very simplistic, but that's why I say this feels in some ways like a kid's movie.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, in the comic books it gets interesting because Black Adam basically got his powers the exact same way. Shazam the Wizard also gave Black Adam powers.
Yeah, and they reference him super briefly towards when they're doing the exposition dump of how they trusted someone and he turned on him or whatever.
Yeah.
That was Black Adam.
Yeah, basically in order to protect he decided to protect his people instead of protect the world, if that makes sense, and kind of became an authoritarian despot in all this. But eventually, once he comes into contact with Shazam, it gets fun because Black Adam's actually more powerful than Shazam is, because Shazam gave up some of his power to his family. So one-on-one, Black Adam can just beat the ever-living dog shit out of Shazam. But, there's the whole thing but he's got backup, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're making a Black Adam movie with The Rock playing Black Adam. So
they won't need the puffy muscle suit for him,
I don't think so.
Oh.
Because The Rock is currently posting videos of his Black Adam workout to get in shape for the movie. So
that dude is fucking ripped.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous. And then you always think he couldn't possibly get more ripped, and then he gets more ripped.
It's just...
Especially,
there's a point where you're like, it's not okay to be that ripped. Like, your body's not designed for that.
Especially since he's like sliding into 50.
Yeah.
And Jesus Christ, like I don't understand it. Like if you look through his Instagram, I think the dude only gets like 4 hours of sleep a night, because then he's up at like 3 a.m. like working out in the gym and fucking doing like a billion things. So yeah. Well, I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah,
Did you watch did you watch any of the post-credit scenes?
I don't remember.
Oh. Well, there's one where Mr. Mind shows up, which is he's just a caterpillar.
Okay, I didn't watch that.
In the DC comics, I think it's explained, and Noah will correct me if I'm wrong, that he's basically the greatest mind in the entire DC universe, but he's trapped in the body of a caterpillar.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, something like that. Andy's got some mind controlling powers and a few other things he can do.
Yeah. So in this, it shows Savannah locked in like a cell. I don't know if it's like a asylum or whatever, and he's just like scratching stuff onto the wall, as they always show crazy people do in movies like this. And then he hears a voice, and he's looking where it's coming from, and you just see this little caterpillar with this weird, like, teeny tiny, like voice box that he's holding up. And he's basically explaining to him how he's the greatest being in the universe, and together they will take over everything, and then, cut to black or whatever. And then like the post-credit scene, it's just Shazam and Freddy arguing over how horrible of powers that Aquaman has.
That's funny. I want to know, in context, Aquaman would have been ready to come out not long after this movie too, right?
Yeah, I think not too long after, yeah.
So that's like how like the MCU puts a post-credit sequence to set up the next movie. This was their version. I like that idea.
Yeah, so when they're like arguing, and I don't even remember what they say, but it's just like, okay, but
they're talking about the talk to fish thing.
Yeah. Oh, so he talks to fish. What if I fight him on land or something like that? Like they're just going back and forth, just about how lame his powers are. It's kind of funny.
That's good. This, in some ways, Shazam is like the kid-friendly version of Deadpool, where he's just like, I like that he exists in a world where he acknowledges all these other superheroes, but it doesn't feel like you could just edit him into Justice League or anything like that. You know what I mean?
It's in the. I was going to say, in the comic books, his interactions with Power Girl are one of the fucking best things that's just ever been put into comics.
Because he's looking at her boob window?
Oh, constantly. It's just constant. And it's constantly these weird, sexually frustrated, pubescent boy moments with this super hot tit window sex bomb of a superhero. Like there's one where they're like, we need to split up. We're going to go in groups of, and he's like, Power Girl. I call Power Girl.
Because I don't know how it goes in continuity now, but like nobody knows he's like a 15-year-old boy inside of the Shazam body. So they just think he's like a regular adult, and then he does like weird 15-year-old dumb shit. And everybody's like, he's weird.
Yeah, in some of the cartoons, they did fun stuff where he would like go hang out with the well, I guess it was called Young Justice, but basically the Teen Titans. Yeah. Because he could actually have normal conversations with them.
Yeah, because they had for a while on the Young Justice cartoon, they had people essentially like staying at the base that they were all staying at, kind of like, you know, essentially babysitting them, but they weren't there to like, you know, I don't know, be like a babysitter, but it's just, we need a hero on the premises just in case, you know, shit goes down, that can sort of lead this team of young heroes. And so he gets signed up for it, and he's just like hanging out with all the young kids, but he looks like he's, you know, in his 30s. And it's just like, essentially that Steve Buscemi meme from 30 Rock, where he's like, how do you do, fellow kids? Like, that's kind of what they think it looks like, but in reality, yeah, he's like 15. What else did you watch?
After that, another superhero movie that I took way too long to get around to. I finally watched the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2.
Oh, yeah.
That's only been out for like 25 years or something.
So I'm curious what you thought of it, because I watched it when it originally came out, and I just watched it as like, okay, this is not going to be perfect because we don't have a time machine. You can't go back and refilm anything. And, you know, you just kind of have to work with what you got. And they had to put some of the scenes were like essentially like audition scenes that they shot between Lois Lane and Margot Kidder and Christopher Reeves. And, you know, like practice footage and stuff like that. So some of it's not perfect, but I feel like it creates a much more compelling story than the actual part 2 ended up being.
Yeah, so I haven't seen Superman 2 in a while. My original plan was I was going to watch all the Superman movies. And then I was like, 3 and 4, I liked them when I was a kid, but I'm pretty sure they're bad movies. So I don't want to watch them and ruin my memory of them. So I'm like, well, I'll watch...
3's a weird movie. 4's a bad movie.
Yeah, 4 is a bad movie. 3 can still be kind of fun just because Richard Pryor's in it. And Red Kryptonite Superman fighting himself is kind of just this weird... funny oddity that you could watch.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I don't want to watch them. Then so I was going to watch 1 and 2, and then I thought, well, I'll watch both versions of 2, and then I'm like, nah, I'll just watch the one that I can get by pushing a couple of buttons, and I won't worry about watching any of the other things. So I just watched the Donner cut. So having it been a while, I did think the story, it felt more, going off memory, like there was a lot more going on between Lois and Clark, like that Lois is a much bigger part of this story. Yeah. And I'm thinking like that's important because I can't remember exactly what his thinking was to give up his powers in the first one, but if you edit more and more of her out, then what's the point? Like why would he do this, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't really notice, again, I wasn't really watching for it, but I didn't notice which scenes were, you know, quote unquote unfinished or whatever footage from. So
it's specifically the scene where she gets him to admit that he's Superman. And the thing I loved about this version, whereas in the theatrical version or whatever, the way she finds out he's Superman